The Sahel is now ground zero for deadly violence. Armed groups are making money from illegal gold mining, drug smuggling, and a flood of small arms. And that cash is what keeps them fighting, what keeps them going. Now we have whole communities being trapped. We have whole communities being trapped. We have people who are actually mining or selling what they can to survive. Local militias spring up to protect themselves, and millions also end up displaced or even living on the edge. Now, this is not just a security problem. It's a failure of governance and opportunity. Weak states, corruption, and broken regional cooperation after recent coups mean that laws are not enforced, so extremist networks fill the gap. So many experts say that the African Union and regional partners must combine better policing with jobs and services for young people if the cycle is to be broken. On the show today, we have Dr. Goodluck Nnorom. He's a strategic management expert. Thank you so much, Dr. Nnorom, for joining us.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So you've heard, the introduction. Africa Sahel now accounts for more than half of global terrorism-related deaths, with shocking and staggering statistics. What does it tell us about how entrenched or how deep this extremism has become in everyday life across the Sahel?
The truth is, anyways, thank you. Looking at the issue on ground, when we talk about some of all these illicit trade or extremism that has been going on in the Sahel, we found that these extremisms have eaten so deep into the core of the people that live in that region. And as such, people begin to find ways and means to survive. And as much as possible, due to hunger, corruption, impoverishment, they resort to whatever it is that they can, bank on to survive. And as much as possible, this is an issue that needs to be looked into, because if we don't have a policy, if we don't have a way of checking and balancing some of these issues, it's going to eat deeper than we're currently looking at presently.
Okay, now, JNMI, right, the Al-Qaeda affiliate, has actually grown fourfold since 2022, and it now boasts of around 6,000 fighters, and experts have actually warned of a growing crime-to-terror nexus. Now, can you unpack what that looks like on the ground and why treating organized crime and terrorism separately is no longer enough?
Well, the truth is, we have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did that come about? You find out that Africa, all right from time, have been seen as a place. I'll start this way. Africa is a very good place to be. But for some reason, we have seen that some people decide to make Africa an unbearable place. People now begin to find ways and means to survive. And so if a terrorist organization is boasting of having so number of fighters or troops as much as possible, that reflects as much as possible the decadence that we find in the African system. So the question is, how have the leaders contributed to this? The question again is, what can be done to get out of this? The question I will also ask again is, what are some of the implications of illicit trade, organized crime, and why should it be given much attention? It should be given much attention because Africa has a future. And if some of all these terrorist groups, illicit trade organizers, if they are not checked, the future of Africa is actually heading for doom.
Absolutely. Speaking of them, the future of Africa heading for doom, by the way, it's been happening for a while, but armed groups have formed quasi-governments, parallel governments, and are now taxing miners and controlling gold routes running entire supply chains, cattle rustling, even in Nigeria, kidnappings, drug smuggling, and even, taxing truck drivers. So what does this modern state within a state model, mean for traditional governance and border control?
What it means is that traditional government has failed. And because traditional government has failed, it has created a lot of loopholes. And this loophole that it has created gives opportunity for people to come together, all right, to say that we want to have our own parallel government, we want to have our own parallel organization that sometimes run contrary to established traditional systems. So people are looking for a way to survive, and the traditional government, the traditional system has failed. And like I said initially, the future of Africa is at stake here, and more so in as much as the future of Africa is at stake here, what can be done? What it means is simple. The government needs to sit back, evaluate some of these challenges, and find where they have gotten it wrong, all right, where they have given room for the rise of militancy, where they have given room for example, let's take mining as a case in point. You find out there are situations where illegal mining has become the order of the day.
Yeah.
But the question is, proceeds from this mining, are they being plowed back to the nation? Are they being plowed back to some of these African countries, especially in the Sahel region? You find out that this is not so. And so some of these militants, some of these leaders of organized terrorists or organized crimes will take advantage of the fact that the proceeds from this mining doesn't come back to the country. It doesn't come back to the citizens. So why should we allow it to continue? We can decide to seize the opportunity for ourselves, all right, and begin to make ourselves maybe rich from whatever it is that we're able to get from the process of illegal mining. So the question is, before a problem happens, there has been a gap. The traditional system has failed. And then people decide to take advantage of that failure, all right? And for example, we are humans. Sometimes you might be fighting a just cause, but the human nature in you might want to tilt the other way around. And so you still find out that these people who are fighting the government, who are forming parallel governments to act as oppositions, if possible, to the government, begin to now, engage in the things that they once condemned.
Absolutely. All right, now away from mining, let's talk about the dramatic rise in cocaine or even cocaine transits, and also local trafficking. Now we're hearing reports of a major surge in drug flows across the region. Roughly 12 million illicit small arms as well, are circulating in West Africa. And with so many weapons in circulation, where should we start? Should we start from border controls, stockpile security, or even rooting out corruption inside security services? And we know, when it comes to rooting out corruption, a lot of governments have tried for so long, but it hasn't worked out. And all of these solutions seems not to be, yielding results.
I think we should start first from telling ourselves the truth. And that's the truth. And what do I mean by telling ourselves the truth? What I mean is simple. You don't want to begin to condemn other people when in-house you are not clean yourself. This is what I mean. You don't want to remove the speck in another person's eye when you have a lot of log, all right, in your eyes. So the question is, where have we gotten it wrong? I keep asking this question. And we can only answer this question when we want to tell ourselves the truth. So we have a lot of weapons, a lot of illicit arms, trafficking, and all of that happening in West Africa. And the numbers keep increasing by the day. An angry man, or a hungry man rather, is an angry man, they say. So what it means is that the governments of these West African countries have not done enough to provide stability. And because there is no stability, people will always look for illegal ways as much as possible just to make sure that they survive. And this could mean going as far as enriching themselves, which we can see. You're looking at a young girl from a poor home who is struggling, not sure of what to eat for the day and not sure of what to eat the next day. And then if opportunity comes for, okay, oh, there's a brother or there's a sister of mine that will take care of you, just follow me. And before you know, they are being trafficked. That is on that part. Now you have a young man too who is also struggling. And then they tell them all sorts of lies and then traffic them. And before you know it, they become members of, illegal gangs and perpetrating crimes as much as possible. So the question is, we need to look inwards. What infrastructure developments are being put in place that can discourage people from looking to the left when it comes to making decisions, all right, as to their lives? If there are no proper infrastructure, if there are no proper systems that will guard against illicit or illegal economies as much as possible, people will continue to thrive on that. And accountability is very, very important. Case in point, the Senegalese president who just decided to exempt himself from being accountable. Now the question is, the local man, all right, will take it up as, if my president is saying he is not accountable, then why should I be accountable? And then this can create a loophole. This can give rise to people engaging in different things, all right, in order to survive. So we have come to a point where Africa needs to rise. Africa needs to have a change of mindset, a change of thought, so that all of these complaints, all of these statistics that are going up about illicit economies and all of that can go down as much as possible. Education is very important in trying to fight all of these challenges. I don't know if it's the United Nations that made recommendation about the percentage of a percentage of a country's budget that should be assigned to education. Now the question is, take Nigeria as an example. What is the percentage of Nigeria's budget being allocated to education? Now go around other West African countries and ask yourself, what is the percentage of their budget as far as education is concerned? You find out that it is actually below the recommended threshold. And how then do you solve this problem when provision for education, provision for healthcare is not given a priority? People will want to look for ways to survive. And one of the ways to survive is what we are discussing. Before you know it, they join illegal gangs, they join illicit trade, trafficking, just to make sure that they find a way to succeed or survive.
All right. Now, earlier you did talk about how the government or our leaders are not doing enough, to find a solution to, the insecurity in Africa in general. But then there has been, a lot of concerns also on the African Union, and the African Union has been uniquely positioned, as we know, to respond. But these delays in deploying a counterterrorism force have also hindered efforts. So what should the AU do? Should the AU bear responsibility for inaction, or what more can they do to help, bring an end to the level of insecurity in the Sahel?
All right. So for me, the African Union, of course, have been saddled with responsibility to see how terrorism can be curbed as much as possible through engaging in counter-terrorism measures. But there have been delays, like you rightly pointed out. And then it still boils down to the fact that these delays could be orchestrated, all right, intentionally. Yes, it could be. Do not quote me, but I feel it could be. Why I said it could be is because the average African, the average Nigerian, all right, when it comes to development, have a problem with development. If you're telling the average Nigerian, for example, that this scheme that you are benefiting from, all right, if we can stop it, the resources can be shared to many other people. You can still enjoy it, but we'll have to share the resources to many other people. That Nigerian man will refuse, because they want to enjoy the proceeds alone. They want to enjoy that resource alone. So as much as possible, the African Union may be suffering from an intentionally orchestrated scheme to delay their response, all right, to terrorism. Okay? So what the African Union can do is to find a way to apply independence. After all, the African Union is supposed to be independent, irrespective of whatever is going on. But they need to find a way to become more independent. Try to have roundtable discussions with stakeholders of the different countries in Africa and find out how best this can be resolved. And one of the ways this can be resolved is to go down to the grassroots. Try to have a scheme.
Okay, now before you go ahead, still on this your chain of thought, we've talked about African Union now. Let's talk about coup governments, weakening regional cooperation. We've talked about African Union. Now let's go back to regional bodies such as ECOWAS and ECAS. There are ones at the center of coordination. They're fraying. We know that. But how much of the security breakdown is down to fractured politics between some of these countries?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, with my little knowledge of security, you find out that ECOWAS is somewhat handicapped. I take, for example, there were times when there was need for ECOWAS to move, especially to, I think it was when there was the rise of the coup in Africa, and ECOWAS was supposed to respond, but there was a delay of some sort as it is happening to African Union. Now, politics in West Africa is fractured, and it is fractured because the average West African, all right, is not seeing his or her neighbor as a brother. And so if that is the case, for example, you see Ghanaians at some point having one or two issues with Nigerians, and then maybe, that has been a dominant issue over time. Now, if all of these divides exist, that would affect, or that, of course, will have been seen to have affected how ECOWAS is supposed to respond to some of the security issues that happened or that is still ongoing around the West African region. So politics is fractured internally within West Africa, and this affects the extent to which cohesion may happen in terms of coming up with countermeasures or counterterrorism measures to resolve some of the security issues that are going on in the region.
Okay. Now, we've talked about, ECAS and ECOWAS, but what about the alliance of Sahel states? We know that recently Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger came together, left ECOWAS, came together to form that. And, they also formed a 5,000-troop joint military force and even floated the idea of a new common currency. Now, can the economic integration, and they're directly affected, by the way, can the economic integration and military cooperation via the AES provide a more sustainable and homegrown answer than external interventions? Because if you look at, what's happening in these particular states that are even military-led, you would wonder why, there's a military government in place in the first place.
Well, the thing is this, we should find a way to solve our problems for ourselves. And that's why the Sahel state, the conveners, as so to say, of the Sahel state, have looked at it and maybe thought that the traditional system has failed them, and then there was need for them to break out and regroup as much as possible. Now, if you look at the reason behind their breaking away, you think it's genuine. But when you look at some of the issues that are happening currently, like you rightly said, you begin to ask, why is there even a military arrangement in the first place? But then again, change comes with a lot of resistance. Change comes with a lot of complexities. And as such, it might seem that whatever measure that are being put in place is not doing enough in trying to resolve some of the security and conflict issues that are happening around the region. But give it time. I guarantee you, give it time. As long as they are able to come together, all right, to understand that though we have our differences, we have a common goal, and the common goal is to ensure stability. The common goal is to ensure growth and development of our regions, all right? So as much as possible, if they're able to put away their differences, form this coalition, and even to the point of having a common currency, that is going to drive a lot of economic gains and economic growth for them, because what it means is that there are certain trade policies that will come up that would offer preferential treatment for members of the Sahel states, the Sahel region. All right. So I see that it will work, but it would need time for it to actually propagate and manifest into the aim. Don't forget, like I said, humans have their own tendency. So, and that is why change can be a little bit complex. But with time, what seems impossible can actually become possible.
Oh, okay. Well, you're the first person that I've spoken to that seems to feel like, you know, this might work. But then let's have your final thoughts in 1 minute, especially for the young people who are saying that they feel that they have no future.
Well, I have a future. I am young, and I want to tell my fellow young people that we actually have a future. The only thing is, I use this opportunity to beg the people at the helm of affairs of Nigeria, of Africa, different countries in Africa, please, as much as possible, create rooms for young people to find their identity. Create opportunities for young people to have a belief in themselves.
Okay.
It pains me.
So sorry.
It pains me.
There's actually no time, Dr. Nnorom, but thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us on this. Dr. Goodluck Nnorom, strategic management expert.
Thank you.